The next morning, Marcus woke to find a bright orange notice taped to his front door. In bold letters, it declared, Pool USAG VIOAATION. Second notice. Fine is may apply. She's completely lost it, Lisa said, reading over his shoulder while bouncing baby Tommy on her hip. Did you look up this HOA thing? Marcus had spent half the night researching. There's no HOA in this neighborhood, never has been. The closest thing is the neighborhood watch group that meets twice a year to complain about potholes. So she's just making this up? Either that, or she's genuinely delusional. Marcus crumpled the notice. I'm going to work. Maybe she'll get bored and move on to harassing someone else. But Karen Pemberton didn't get bored. She got creative. By noon, she'd posted on 3 different Facebook groups about rogue homeowners undermining community safety. She'd called the city planning office to file a complaint about unpermitted pool usage. She'd even contacted the health department about potential mosquito breeding grounds. Her husband, Gerald, found her at the kitchen table surrounded by printed emails and legal documents she'd found online. Karen, sweetheart, maybe it's time to let this go. Let it go? Karen's voice rose an octave. Gerald, this is about principle. If we let one person flout the rules, where does it end? Chaos, that's where. Dogs running free, lawns going unmowed, property values plummeting. But honey, there aren't any actual rules. I checked with the city. The city doesn't understand community standards like I do. Karen's fingers flew across her laptop keyboard. I'm drafting a formal petition to establish proper HOA oversight. Someone needs to maintain order around here. Gerald sighed and retreated to his workshop, where he'd been spending increasing amounts of time lately. Meanwhile, Marcus arrived home to find Karen standing in his driveway, now wearing what appeared to be a homemade security vest and carrying a clipboard. Mr. Chen, she called out, I need to conduct a property inspection to document violations. Marcus parked and got out slowly. Karen, you can't just inspect my property. You don't have any authority here. I have community-granted authority, she replied, making notes. I've been elected as neighborhood safety coordinator. Elected by who? The concerned residents who've been calling me about your pool situation. Karen gestured vaguely. Mrs. Patterson from Pine Street is particularly worried about the noise levels. Marcus knew Mrs. Patterson. She was 83, nearly deaf, and lived 6 blocks away. Mrs. Patterson called you about my pool. She called about community safety in general. I'm simply connecting the dots. Karen took photos of his house with her phone. Now, I'll need access to your backyard to measure decibel levels during peak usage hours. Absolutely not. Karen's pen froze mid-sentence. Excuse me. I said no. You're not coming into my yard. You're not measuring anything. You're not my HOA president because there is no AOA. Mr. Chen, obstruction of a community safety investigation is a serious offense. According to what law? Karen's face flushed. According to the authority vested in me by concerned neighbors who demand action against disruptive elements in this community. Marcus pulled out his phone. You know what? I think it's time to call the police. Let them sort this out. The police? Karen's confidence faltered for just a moment. That's not necessary. I'm sure we can resolve this through proper channels. You're right, Marcus said, dialing. The proper channel is law enforcement, dealing with someone who's harassing residents and making false claims about authority they don't have. Karen's face went pale, then red, then purple. You'll regret this, Mr. Chen. When property values tank and crime rates soar, remember that you chose chaos over community standards. As she stormed away, Marcus heard her muttering about uncooperative residents and emergency board meetings. He had a sinking feeling this was far from over. Karen Pemberton's perfectly manicured finger jabbed toward the sparkling blue water like a sword of suburban justice. You cannot use this pool without HOA approval, and I'm telling you right now, approval denied. The homeowner, Marcus Chen, stood dripping wet on his own patio, having just climbed out of what he'd assumed was his own backyard pool. His jaw dropped as he processed the words coming from the woman who'd somehow appeared in his yard, like an angry genie summoned by the smell of chlorine. I'm sorry, what? Marcus blinked water from his eyes, wondering if he'd somehow developed pool-induced hallucinations. This is my house, my pool, my property. Karen's pencil-thin eyebrows shot up her forehead. Your property ends at the fence line, sir. According to HOA bylaws section 47B, any recreational water feature visible from the street requires community board approval before usage. She brandished a thick binder like a weapon. Did you file the proper paperwork? Marcus looked around his backyard, genuinely confused. The 6-foot privacy fence he'd installed last spring blocked any view from the street. His pool wasn't visible to anyone except maybe low-flying aircraft. Lady, I don't know who you are, but I'm Karen Pemberton, HOA board president, and I've been monitoring this situation for weeks. Her voice carried the authority of someone who'd never been told she was wrong. Multiple residents have complained about unauthorized pool usage in this neighborhood. Unauthorized pool usage? In my own backyard? Karen's eyes narrowed. The complaint specifically mentioned this address. Splashing sounds, pool equipment running at inappropriate hours, children laughing, all violations of our community noise ordinances. Marcus's wife, Lisa, appeared at the sliding glass door, their 8-year-old daughter Emma peeking around her legs. Honey, who's the angry lady yelling at our pool? That's exactly what I'm trying to figure out, Marcus replied, grabbing his towel. Ma'am, I think you're confused. This is 47 Maple Street. I bought this house 2 years ago. The pool came with it. Karen flipped through her binder with theatrical flourish. Aha, here it is. Pool installation permit from 2018. But no usage authorization on file. The previous owners violated community standards, and you're continuing their illegal activity. Usage authorization. Marcus's voice cracked. For my own pool. Community harmony requires structure, mister. Karen waited expectantly. Chen. Marcus Chen. The guy whose name is on the deed to this property. Karen scribbled notes on a pink violation form. Mr. Chen, ignorance of HOA regulations isn't an excuse. I'm issuing you a formal cease and desist order. No pool usage until proper documentation is submitted and approved by the board. Marcus stared at her, then at his pool, then back at her. You're seriously telling me I can't swim in my own backyard? That's exactly what I'm telling you. Karen ripped the pink form from her pad with satisfaction. You have 48 hours to comply, or will be forced to involve law enforcement. As she marched toward the gate, her sensible shoes clicking against the concrete, Marcus called out, "What happens if I don't comply?" Karen turned back with a smile that could freeze hellfire. Then you'll discover just how seriously this community takes its standards, Mr. Chen. Karen sat in her car outside 47 Maple Street at 6:47 a.m., sipping lukewarm coffee from a thermos and watching Marcus's house through binoculars. She'd been documenting unusual activity for 3 days now, filling a notebook with timestamps and observations. 6:47 a.m. Suspect retrieves newspaper from driveway. Potential noise violation. 6:52 a.m. Lights on in kitchen. Excessive energy usage. 7:15 a.m. Garage door opens. Mechanical noise disrupts morning tranquility. Her phone buzzed. Gerald's text read, "Coming home for lunch. Hope you're having a good day at book club." Karen had told him she was volunteering at the library this week. It wasn't technically a lie. She was doing important research about community standards and property laws. The fact that she was conducting surveillance instead of alphabetizing books was a minor detail. At 7:30 a.m., she watched Emma Chen skip down the driveway to wait for the school bus, her backpack bouncing with each step. The sight of the child's carefree happiness made something twist in Karen's chest. When had she stopped feeling that light? Her phone rang. Karen Pemberton speaking. Mrs. Pemberton, this is Principal Williams from Jefferson Elementary. I understand you've been asking questions about one of our students. Karen's grip tightened on the phone. I'm conducting a community safety assessment. It's standard procedure when there are concerns about a household. Ma'am, I need to be clear about something. You cannot request information about our students unless you're a parent or guardian. If you continue to make these inquiries, I'll have to involve district security. The line went dead. Karen stared at her phone, confusion and anger warring in her chest. When had everyone become so uncooperative? When had community safety become so complicated? She opened her laptop and began typing a letter to the mayor, detailing the systematic breakdown of neighborhood oversight and the urgent need for enhanced community standards enforcement. As she wrote, her anger crystallized into purpose. That evening, she attended the monthly neighborhood watch meeting. All 6 regular attendees gathered in the community center basement. Karen had prepared a presentation about escalating safety concerns and the need for immediate action against disruptive elements. "So you want us to do what exactly?" asked Tom Rodriguez, the group's informal leader. "Establish proper oversight protocols, form committees, issue violations when necessary." "Karen, we meet to discuss potholes and organize block parties," said Mrs. Kim from Elm Street. "We're not a police force." "That's exactly the problem. Without proper authority, we can't maintain standards." "What standards?" Tom looked genuinely confused. "Everyone keeps their lawns mowed. Nobody's causing trouble. What's the issue?" Karen felt heat rising in her cheeks. The Chen family has been operating an unauthorized pool for months. They're disrupting the peace, ignoring proper procedures. "Wait," interrupted Mrs. Kim. "You mean Marcus and Lisa? They're lovely people. Their pool's been there for years. That's not the point. It's about following proper channels, getting approval." "Approval from who?" Tom asked. "There's no HOA here, Karen. Never has been." The room fell silent. Karen looked around at the faces staring back at her, some confused, some concerned, all clearly thinking she'd lost her mind. "Someone needs to maintain order," she said quietly. "Someone needs to care about standards." "Karen," Mrs. Kim said gently, "are you okay? You seem stressed lately." The kindness in her voice was somehow worse than anger would have been. Karen gathered her materials with shaking hands. "I'm fine. I'm the only one who sees what's happening to this neighborhood." As she left the meeting, she heard Tom whisper to Mrs. Kim, "Should we call her husband?" Karen sat in her car in the parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel. Everyone was wrong. Everyone was blind to the decay creeping into their community. If they wouldn't listen to reason, she'd have to take more decisive action. She pulled out her phone and scrolled through her contacts, stopping at a number she'd been saving for emergencies. The private investigator had been expensive, but some things were worth the investment. "Hello, this is Karen Pemberton. I need to discuss expanding our surveillance operation." Officer Jennifer Martinez had been a cop for 12 years, but she'd never received a call quite like this one. The dispatch notes read, "Homeowner dispute, possible HOA violation. Caller claims neighbor using pool illegally." When she arrived at 47 Maple Street, she found Karen Pemberton pacing on the sidewalk, clutching her binder and checking her watch every few seconds. "Officer, thank goodness you're here." Karen rushed over. "I've been documenting multiple violations of community standards, and the resident is being completely uncooperative." Officer Martinez looked around the quiet, well-maintained neighborhood. "What kind of violations are we talking about?" "Unauthorized pool usage, noise ordinance violations, failure to comply with HOA regulations." Karen flipped through her binder. "I have photographs, decibel readings, and signed complaints from concerned neighbors." "Okay, let's start with the basics. Are you a resident of this street?" "I'm the HOA board president for this entire neighborhood." Martinez pulled out her notepad. "And what's the name of this HOA?" Karen paused. "The Maple Street Community Standards Association." "When was it established?" "We're in the process of formalizing the paperwork, but community standards don't wait for bureaucracy, officer." A red flag went up in Martinez's mind. "So there's no officially registered HOA?" "Not yet. But—" "Ma'am, where exactly do you live?" Karen's cheeks colored. "I live on Oak Street, but community safety is everyone's responsibility. Oak Street. And how far is that from here? Distance is irrelevant when it comes to maintaining neighborhood integrity. Officer Martinez was beginning to understand the situation. About 4 blocks, right? I know that area. At that moment, Marcus emerged from his house, having heard the police car. Officer, I'm the one who called. This woman has been harassing me for days, claiming I need permission to use my own pool. Your pool? Martinez looked between them. On your own property. That's right. She showed up in my backyard yesterday, telling me I needed HOA approval to swim. Karen interrupted. He's violated multiple community standards. The noise, the unauthorized usage, the complete disregard for proper procedures. Ma'am? Officer Martinez held up her hand. Let me get this straight. You live 4 blocks away. You're president of an HOA that doesn't exist, and you're trying to prevent this man from using his own pool in his own backyard. When you put it like that, it sounds unreasonable, Karen said defensively. But someone needs to maintain standards. Do you know what happens to neighborhoods without proper oversight? Martinez bit her lip to keep from smiling. Why don't you tell me? Chaos. Property values plummet. Crime rates soar. Families move away. I've seen it happen. Karen's voice took on a passionate intensity. One person thinks they can do whatever they want. And before you know it, everyone's parking on their lawns and painting their houses neon colors. Marcus stared at her. I just want to swim in my pool. Today it's unauthorized pool usage. Tomorrow it's loud parties and drug dealing. Officer Martinez couldn't hold back anymore. A snort of laughter escaped, then another. Ma'am, are you seriously suggesting that this man swimming in his own pool is going to lead to drug dealing? It's about precedent. Karen insisted, but her voice had lost some of its conviction. Here's what's going to happen, Martinez said, composing herself. Mr. Chen, you're free to use your pool whenever you want. It's your property. Ma'am, you need to stop harassing this family. But the community standards. There are no community standards that apply here. There's no HOA. You have no authority. Martinez's tone became more serious. If you continue this behavior, you could be charged with harassment. Karen's world tilted. You're not taking this seriously. I'm taking it very seriously. I'm seriously telling you to leave this family alone. As Officer Martinez drove away, she couldn't stop chuckling. But in her rearview mirror, she saw Karen still standing on the sidewalk, staring at Marcus's house with an expression that worried her. The knock on Marcus's door at 8 p.m. was not from Karen. It was from Gerald Pemberton, looking haggard and holding a manila envelope. Mr. Chen, I'm Gerald, Karen's husband. I think we need to talk. Marcus led him to the living room, where Lisa was folding laundry while Emma practiced piano. Gerald's eyes lingered on the normal family scene, the scattered toys, the homework spread across the coffee table, the comfortable chaos of real life. She's been watching your house, Gerald said quietly. For weeks, she hired someone to take photos, research your background, document your daily routines. He handed Marcus the envelope. I found these in her office. Marcus opened it to find detailed surveillance photos of his family. Emma getting on the school bus, Lisa in the grocery store, himself leaving for work. His hands shook as he flipped through them. Gerald, this is insane. I know. Gerald ran his hands through his thinning hair. She spent thousands of dollars on this. Legal consultations, private investigators, filing fees for complaints with every city department she could find. Why? Lisa asked, moving closer to look at the photos. We've never even spoken to her before last week. Gerald was quiet for a long moment. We lost our son 3 years ago. Car accident. He was 22, just graduated college, had his whole life ahead of him. His voice cracked. Karen never really recovered. She started focusing on smaller and smaller things, trying to control everything she could because she couldn't control what mattered. Marcus felt his anger deflate. Gerald, I'm sorry. I had no idea. I thought it would get better with time. Instead, it got worse. She started seeing threats everywhere, problems that needed fixing. Your pool just became her latest obsession. Where is she now? She's at the police station. She tried to file a citizen's arrest warrant against you this afternoon. Marcus's eyebrows shot up. For what? Everything she could think of. Pool violations, noise complaints, property damage, child endangerment. Gerald shook his head. They're not arresting her, but they're strongly suggesting she get help. Through the window, they could see Karen's car pulling into the driveway. She sat for several minutes before getting out, moving like someone carrying an invisible weight. I should go, Gerald said, standing. I wanted you to know. She's not evil. She's just broken. Marcus watched through the window as Gerald approached his wife. Karen looked up at him with an expression of such lost confusion that Marcus felt his heart break a little. She'd been so fierce, so certain, so completely convinced of her own righteousness. Now she looked like someone who'd woken up from a dream to find the world had changed while she slept. The next morning, Marcus found an envelope in his mailbox. Inside was a handwritten note on expensive stationery. Mr. Chen, I owe you an apology. I've been trying to control things that weren't mine to control, fighting battles that didn't need to be fought. You were right. It's your pool, your property, your life. I'm sorry for intruding on your peace. I hope someday you can forgive a foolish woman who lost her way. Karen Pemberton. Marcus never saw Karen again, though Gerald occasionally waved from his car when he drove past. Through neighborhood gossip, he learned that Karen had started therapy and was volunteering at a grief support group. She'd donated all her HOA research materials to a local community college as an example of how good intentions can go wrong. But sometimes, on quiet evenings when Marcus was floating in his pool, he'd notice a car drive slowly past his house. Not Karen's car, a different one each time. And he'd wonder if somewhere in the city, other people were fighting their own battles against chaos they couldn't control, finding their own pools to regulate, their own communities to save. The pool violations had stopped, but the questions they raised about grief, control, and the thin line between caring and obsession seemed to ripple outward like waves in still water, touching shores that Marcus couldn't see. Who else was out there, trying to hold back the tide?